Yo, I'm back, and I've got another AIO kit. It's the Veepon Tita X2. This is the Royal Custom Special Edition. It's got a nice little tin box that it comes in. That battery wrap is not included in the kit. I'll explain why that's in there in just a moment. But this device does feature the Evolve DNA ATC chip. Here's some information. It's a single 18650 battery mod, up to 80 watts of power. And it comes with the Veepon Tita X tank. Not the Tita X2 tank, which has been released alongside this device. It comes with the original Tita tank, which is a frustration for me, but you know, that's just what it is, I suppose. It isn't as difficult to get into as I made it look there. I just have no nails, so don't really hold that against it, please. But that's the tank. Comes with the mod, which isn't in the box as I've been using it, and a USB-C cable, the tank as you've just seen, and some spare O-rings and fill port plugs for the tank. Nothing else in the box, or the tin, I suppose I should say. And here is the device, and it does look very good. It got a nice tribal looking pattern all over the device in black and white. USB-C port cover there, always a nice touch. Stays in fairly well. And there is the battery bay. If it's not box fresh, it's because I've been using it. It doesn't come with bits and bobs all over it like there. And it is marked on the side with Royal Custom Special Edition. Got a front plate that you can remove to get to the screen and the controls. Battery spacer, reducer, whatever you want to call them. Quite common on AIO devices of this style. Magnets are pretty strong on the front. Don't need to be any stronger than they are. And I assume that little rubber bit in the center of the bottom there is just for a bit of grip when it's stood up. There's a little bit of a lip on the bottom of that front plate that catches with a little port on the front, just so it stays in place a little bit better. I will say it annoys me, to be fair. I mean, it's good that it's there, but when you're trying to put the plate back on, it slows down the process of, you can't just slap it back on, you have to carefully place it back into place. 510 drip tip that you can use to take off the 510 connection, which is always good. Don't like having to use an extra tool to get that connection off of these AIO kits. This is my biggest gripe with this device. The battery bay is extremely snug and sharp. So much so that it tears the wraps off most of the batteries that I've got. So there's my ODB XT 18650. Here's a fresh one that hasn't been tormented by the device. And I'll show you what I mean. It just doesn't fall into place. You've got to apply some real pressure to it, and applying that pressure causes the battery wraps to get pulled or torn. Here's a very common battery used in vaping, Molicel P28A. And you can see the bottom of the battery doesn't go in very well. And I did have to wrestle with a little bit to get it back out. Here is another battery. It's not really a battery that I've used in this device because it's a 10 amp battery. I think it's a Sanyo something or other, but I use it in my MTL kits. But just to show, again, the top side of the battery goes in okay. Bottom side can go in with a little bit of a push and it doesn't ruin the battery wrap, but still kind of frustrating. Won't just fall out like the top side will, the bottom side does get stuck in there. And you can see this is a little bit of a crease put on the battery wrap of that one. And this is a Sony VCT5 battery. Just falls into place and falls back out. I have no idea why. This here is a Molicel P28A that I have rewrapped with the Mixology battery wraps we have at the shop, which are extremely thin. And again, it's stuck, so I don't think it comes down to the battery wraps themselves that causes it to get stuck. I think it just depends on which battery. There's obviously fractions of a millimeter difference from battery to battery. And yeah, so me rewrapping that P28A didn't really solve the problem. So I'm putting the VCT5 back in there just for purposes of showing you how it operates. It's powered on, just unlocking it now. And I noticed the battery is kind of low, so put that P28A back in there. And as you can see, from putting it in and taking it out, whilst I've been using it over the past couple of weeks, it has torn the bottom there. Now, if that does happen to any of your batteries, I do heavily recommend you not use it in the device or any device, just rewrap it, but do as I say, not as I do, all right? So let's have a look at the screen, the chipset, whatever you want to call it. So the up and down buttons to navigate through the options. And these are the settings. We've got boost, which is like a ramp up setting. The higher the number, the higher the initial wattage will fire. It reaches the power that you've selected on the main screen. Got some brightness settings there. Nice and bright at maximum, and it is dim on the lowest setting, but still usable in most light settings, I like to think. One thing I do find frustrating about this operating system is if you go all the way down through the bottom of the settings, it sort of exits from the settings screen. Got color options, so it's just the visuals that are on the screen. We've got blue, brick, classic. I think there was another one as well. So yeah, as you saw there, to exit the settings, you don't press back or go to an exit. You just scroll all the way through to the bottom of the settings there. And that was the other color option there, rain. I don't really like the visuals. This chipset does have the DNA replay feature, which is that sort of circular arrow there. So you would highlight that and select it if you wanted to use the replay feature, but I'm not a massive fan of it. The replay feature, if you don't know, if you take a hit on your device and you really like that particular hit, then if you select the replay feature, it should give you the same hit every single time. So yeah, this is me just moaning that even though it's the Tita X2 mod, you get the Tita X1 tank, but I've decided to use my Crypt V2 tank because I'm really enjoying using it with my Tita X RBA. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I was expecting with this device, given that it's a special edition and quite pricey, you would get the Tita X2 tank, and I would have preferred, well, of course I would have preferred to get the Tita X2 RBA with it, but you don't. You get the X1 tank and no RBA at all. I'm not just being tight, I would have thought, you know, you're paying special edition prices, if you want to call it that, and you just get the device and an old tank. It's kind of frustrating, I'll be honest. Now, this device isn't really suitable for use with the Crypt V2 tank, given that you get airflow from the front and the side. And in most most AIOs, you would only have either, or most ones that I've used anyway, you'd only get either front airflow or side airflow. I don't like these fully open type of designs because it just gives you way too much airflow when you're using the Crypt V2 tank. So here I'm using it, and in terms of use, it's an AIO with an okay chipset. I'm not too technical when it comes to the chipsets of devices, to be fair, but I've heard lots of people say that ATC isn't that great due to battery drainage and things like that, but I don't get too into the nitty-gritty of chipsets personally. As long as it fires okay and the battery efficiency is acceptable, I'm happy. So yeah, another gripe with it is you can't just slap the magnet back on, the magnetic door back on the front. You have to make sure it's placed in properly. The battery wrap ripping situation is unacceptable, completely and utterly unacceptable. It should not be tearing battery wraps, especially when the standard edition of this device doesn't have the same problem. I think only the special edition that costs notably more ripping wraps, but the standard one doesn't, is just unacceptable. It's very small and compact, which some people would like, but I prefer a bigger device, so that's another personal gripe. Here's me trying to explain that having airflow in through the front and the side of the device means it's not optimal for use with the Crypt V2 tank, and I love the tank. So another personal gripe is it's not really suitable with my preferred tank of choice at the moment, at least anyway, but that's another personal gripe. I'm left-handed, and due to the fire button placement, for me to use it in my left hand, you have to have the front of the device in, like facing your palm, and when the back of the device is rounded with the battery, it's more comfortable to hold with the rounded side in your palm. But in order to get to the fire button with your left hand, you need to have the squared off side of the device facing your palm. It's not uncomfortable, it's just less comfortable. So that's another personal gripe. But it's a device, so you can't really talk about how well the flavor performs and stuff like that. It just delivers the power, and it delivers the power okay. But with how much these devices cost, and I paid full whack for it, plus shipping from Indonesia, really bugged me. You're selling a special edition version of the Tita X2 device. You're giving me a Tita X1, if you want to call that, or original Tita tank. I don't like that. I'm not just like trying to beg for an extra bit of kit. In my opinion, you would have been better off just not giving me a tank at all, rather than just chucking in an old one with it. But most of my gripes with this device are personal. Overall, it's an okay device, but due to my personal gripes, I just wouldn't recommend it. There's better AIOs out there for you. But that's just me. Peace.